Hello, so with the speakers before me, what you have learned is that if the new education policy wants Indian universities to become competitive, to become global, to meet international standards, to increase rankings, that in fact this harebrained one nation, one exam scheme, a university like JNU is something which is suffering. We have, in fact, instead of more interdisciplinary teaching, as Rama just said, we have less interdisciplinary teaching. In fact, we have abysmal amounts. Instead of adhering to international standards of how to admit either MA or PhD or even BA students, we are now, I don't think that there is no word, there is no level to describe the standard to which a whole nation has been reduced to. So while we may take some comfort in the fact that we are we are not alone in this hellhole, why is it that we mind so much? Well, for most of my life that I have been in JNU, and I still believe that the act has not been repealed yet, a university like JNU, like other universities, is no means to deny the role of other what the objectives of other universities are. But in JNU, there is something called the first schedule of the JNU Act. The first schedule of the Act requires me, as a member of the academic council, as a member of the university, to strive to give education to people from all parts of India, to enable them to be part of the program to encourage social responsibility. And my university's admission procedures were based, and the things that we know about JNU, which I won't go into, but you know these terms, deprivation points, the fact that we've always implemented reservation very seriously, all of that flowed from who we were supposed to admit. What was our scope? Our scope was a national scope. Ours was the first university that was framed in, whose act was framed in Free India, and it was supposed to provide a new model. We would also be the university that we think, by the government's own metrics, which are not our metrics at all, are a university that has reasonably succeeded. And the reason why we've succeeded is not because we made very, very good MCQs, or even that we had great international ranking, but because we could decide our own admission policy, the service of our. Now, what has happened today is, as the power, what we've had with the NEP and the CUET is a complete evisceration of the powers that an academic council has. This is true in every university. In 45 central university, if it's not true today, it will be true tomorrow, given the way that it's working. That means I am no longer in service of my act. Now, the direct consequence and the impact of this is felt by students, because our admission policies were created to be able to service, in service of our act. JNU has a deprivation point system. Its deprivation point system gives deprivations for regional and economic backwardness using government statistics, not subjective, for gender backwardness, and we collect data when students get admitted on the basis of from them to ensure that our admission policy is working. And what you can see from the table 3 that you have here, that despite what has been done to the PhD program where these deprivation points do not apply, that despite that, because otherwise that we have a huge amount of admissions in the postgraduate, that's the largest, what we get is a percentage, and this is not only about in reserved seats, this is in the general open category as well, that 50% of the students, even in 2019-2020, were from rural background. They had incomes of below 12,000 rupees per month, 47%. And because there has been actually a huge fall in the PhD admission gender, this is the first year that we have statistics for, where the gender thing has come down to below 50%. Otherwise, we were just 51 or 52% women. Now, these are the students. That is 50% of JNU students are from poor, deprived regions of India. They are women. They are from extremely low income backgrounds. Now, for those students, this break that has been engendered in education, I'm sure that we all know people who cannot afford to wait. What the CUET's implementation has done for middle classes and upper classes, I think that private universities must have had a record admission this time, because they have facilitated the complete fulfilling of the admissions of private universities. But we know what the figures are there. Now, with the CUET delayed like this, either undergraduate, postgraduate, and PhD maybe never, these are the people who are 50% of our students, and I can assure you that the other 50% is also not mostly in a position to pay a private university fee, that those people are left without education completely. And where there is, as we've shown before, that there is no certainty. Now, usually, bright students who come through an education system rely on the cyclicity of admission and fellowships to be able to pursue and live a life as a student. Otherwise, they have to work. So what we are seeing is the candidates that we will get here in our university might not be there at all, because they would have been pushed out of the education system. And this is a direct violation of the JNU Act. So a lot is talked about India's youth dividend, and we look at great enthusiasm, particularly at middle class and rich children, because the poor children and poor people are invisible. But they are not for JNU teachers, and they are not for the JNU Act. So for us, this is one of the biggest impacts. We have seen in this university, in a proto-NEP period, is that we've had huge seat cuts in 2017, 2018, and subsequently. Now, the seat cuts, I think, are bad enough that our PhD seats have fallen to extreme numbers. But there is another, from that same period, the lack of promotions. Half the university, as some of you might have got the booklet, half the university is waiting for promotion at this moment. Nobody has got, faculty have not been promoted. And because of the UGC regulations of 2016, what this means is there is direct impact on PhD seats. And the impact is as follows, because there are people waiting to be promoted from assistant professor to associate professor, and where they would get 2 more PhD students, PhD seats, they could have 2 more. And there are people waiting to be promoted from assistant professor to professor, in which case there's a 4. So as you can see from this graph, that we've lost 378 PhD seats. So the non-reward or progression of faculty has a direct consequence. There are many other aspects, but I won't go into them. I just want to talk about just one more point. If we have an autonomous admission policy, the university, in response to whatever the discussions are amongst the community, which includes for us students are not subjects of exam. The JNU Act gives the students a membership of the academic council. So policies in the university are determined in consultation with all stakeholders. There is the issue of exactly what the mode and the format of the exam is going to be. Perhaps you remember this, perhaps you don't, but in 2017, when the UGC regulations were implemented by force, 100% Viva was declared for all seats. Because that was the UGC regulations. They said for everything there has to be, the Viva is 100% determination. So the point that Debashish and others were making before, that screening, written exams, even MCQ, we use as a screening, and it was only oral performance. Well, JNU had this discussion in 2015, and the Academic Council had decided that the ratio of Viva Voce to the written would be 80-20. This loss of autonomy that has, which is now the CUET just makes it worse because we don't even set any question papers, is as a consequence, even what we consider is the proper implementation of the JNU Act, we cannot carry forward. I think it was in 2018 that the High Court of India had ruled on a petition by the student that the fact that there are so many vacancies, the fact that there are so few seats is a national waste. The CUET is making the national waste a permanent condition. And that is why we feel as JNU teachers that it is important for us on an academic basis to say that we cannot be part of this system, and that we had a profitable exam, that we had a methodology which was, as Sujata said, subjected to, from time to time, to change. That power must be given back to the teachers, and that as a university we must assert our powers under the JNU Act. So, we would like to wind up now.